This is our board game, Echoes of Valor. Yeah, I want to click on it. There we go.
All right, so for historical references, we wanted to make our game not about as much who won, but who lost the least, because everyone dies. And we, so it's 3-front battle with support, and the support's designed around infantry support, which you would see normally on a battlefield. Then we have our main battles across, with our major battles coming into a full 4-front battle across, or 2v2.
So there's a little overhead of the board, if you can't see it as well here.
That we intended to put on the big screen so you guys can see better.
Yeah, should have been up there, but whatever.
Do you want this?
Well, I can't see what we're on. Click ahead.
It's the same thing.
Alright, so the way that it's played without getting too deep in the weeds is that you start with this board, which is called the support battle, and you roll a couple of dice and move your little plane around the board and try to shoot each other down or accomplish some objective, and that'll get you one of the 3 different types of cards, recon, bombing, and reinforcements, and then that's your support for your front battle. So whoever wins this battle gets a card. Like I got the blockade card, so that'd be played beforehand, and the opponent cannot roll for the bonuses on their infantry cards. So you get to this one, and like Brian said, you got the 3 fronts across from each other. There's a picture of the card there with the attack points on each card, and then based on the relevant years that correspond with the battles that that group would have fought in, they get a bonus, and the bonus is determined by rolling dice, just standard regular dice, and then you add them up. In that instance, he couldn't roll, so I'd have an advantage, and if you win, you get to keep your armies. They go to your discard pile, and if you don't, they go to your Echoes of Valor pile, and they don't come back. So as the game goes on, resources and armies are depleted, and they can't be regained. So it's kind of the idea of things are very limited and falling rapidly, so there's not a whole lot of gaining. It's just, managing losses.
Inspirations, mainly The Longest Trench, low complexity, card-based game. Dogfight came from this smaller board here. The attacker-defender playstyle, the circuit kind of board, is what we kind of liked, and it made it a little easier to look at. And then the Grizzled, which was a cooperative gameplay, more card-based. And
what we forgot to mention is that it's a 2v2 player game, where one person from each team is playing the support game before each round, and your teammate is playing on the fronts. Because, when you're in the air, you can, like if you're having an aerial combat or something, you can get support and reinforcements for your fellow soldiers, but you can't directly communicate with them. So we wanted to kind of incorporate that into a 2v2 style. And then for our improvements, pretty much kind of the same thing you saw across all the other games. Quality of materials, because we're college students, and none of us are really good mechies. So we didn't laser cut anything or 3D print. Yeah, good mechies. And then some of our game pieces, we just use die and standard little wood dome pieces. And then on our cards, we could have printed out some stickers like some of the other groups, or had a little bit more artistic style to it, so that it could, so that we could have some better representation of actual reinforcements in battle and what the troops actually look like. But in our instance, we just have the name and their effective years within the battles.
Any questions?
Those custom dice?
Yes.
They are.
Yeah. If you look at the normal dice,
They're also custom.
they were spray painted white, and then the black's colored back in.
Spray paint's fun.
Make a lot of masks.
Well, we had a big cardboard box out on the grass,
Yeah.
and then the wind blew dirt all over it.
And then inside too.
Small pieces. All right.
What are those green, red, orange, and blue squares or rectangles at the side?
These are the different battles. So as you go along, when this battle's over, you move along, move to the next battle. Who's attacking and what kind of support you get for each battle, and you just move all the way along to the final offensive.
The color coding is just by year.
By year, yeah.
Yeah, I would really love if all you guys could see the really nice picture I took, like all the way up here of the full game being set up, but I bet you get this.
Sweet.
What'd you do?
I didn't do anything. All right. Sweet.
For our game, we did a little World War I trench warfare card game called Frontline Clash.
The objective of Frontline Clash is to outmaneuver and overpower your opponent's forces while managing your own effectively. Each player gets to mimic a commander on each side, strategizing and making crucial decisions with the goal of gaining insight into the hardships faced by either side during World War I, specifically in the realm of trench warfare. Each side, the deck of cards is split into allied powers and essential powers. Each side has troop cards, event cards, and tactic cards. Both sides have 5 infantry cards, 5 machine gun cards, 4 trench raider cards, 4 sniper squad cards, 2 barbed wire cards, 2 gas mask cards, 1 gas attack card, and 1 no man's land card.
We tried to make each side have about 26 cards because, talking to you earlier, 52 cards is probably the easiest production amount that anyone's going to work with. Little overview of the gameplay, and then we're going to show a quick little sample turn for one player. So there are 5 phases to the gameplay for each turn. First, we have the resource phase. At the beginning of each player's turn, they're going to gain 3 resource points, and they draw from their deck until they reach 7 cards in their hand. Just a little note, players start each game with 10 resource points. For your deployment phase, players may deploy a soldier or their tactic card from their hand by paying whatever the required resource cost is, which is on the cards and in the rulebook. Cards that are going to be face up in front of the player signify the forces they have active, and they can use resource points to activate special abilities. The order of the cards matters in placement, because it's going to be how the action phase commences and how you resolve combat. So during the action phase, players can take a bunch of different actions. They can attack enemy units using their cards, and again, each damage dealt is a reduction in strength. Troop is dead once their strength reaches 0. That is also all the details for damage and strength is in our rulebook. Moving troops, players can rearrange their units within themselves to help better get advantages during the combat resolutions, and they can activate special abilities. A few of the cards have them, like the Trench Mortar has one to deal damage to opponents' troops. The combat resolution is based on the strength and abilities of all the involved units. During the event phase, if they drew an event card at the beginning of their turn, they can choose to use it or not to use it if they would like to. They can save it all the way to the end of the game if they'd like. At the end of each turn, players take any excess cards from their hand to comply with the size limitations. As I said earlier, you can only have 7 cards at once. They pass the turn to the next player. If your troop is killed during your turn, you can recycle 1 card every turn, and that's it. So if you lose 4 troops in one turn, you only have to put 1 back in your deck to use again, helping the win condition of eliminating all the opponent's forces, because eventually you're going to run out of cards. It's a 2-player game, doesn't take all that long to play, and technically you can also win by fulfilling certain objectives on the event cards. We found that kind of hard during the play testing, didn't happen all that often.
Alright, we're going to show a little sample turn. This is what a hand would look like, because you draw a bunch of cards. Alright, so first player gains 3 resource points at the beginning of the turn. And this person decided to deploy 2 infantry and 1 machine gunner. Alright, and now let's say player 2 deployed 1 infantry, 2 machine gunners. Now both players' troops are at full strength because the action phase has not happened yet. Now the action phase, player 1 attacks with all of their troops, totaling 4 damage. Player 2's troops in order of their unit placement.
I just want to note one thing here. In the rulebook, it kind of specifies what order cards can be placed in. So you see how the machine gunners are behind the infantry. That is a requirement based on their card placement. They cannot get placed in front.
So this would be the order that they would be placed. Alright, combat resolution. After action phase, player 2 has no infantry remaining, 1 machine gunner at 4 strength, and 1 gunner at 5 strength. This is because the enemy's troops take the damage in order that they are presented, like we just said.
So kind of a little in-depth on that. The player 1 totaled 4 damage because each of their infantry did 1 and their machine gunner did 2. And if you go back real quick, the first infantry on player 2's side on top has strength of 3. So that's the first one they're going to attack. So take 4 damage minus a 3 strength. That one's dead. Player 1 has 1 damage remaining. They can choose either of the 2 gunners to deal the damage to. So just one of them drops to a strength 4. You want to have a little notepad playing this game, which also mentioned in the rulebook, to keep track of your resource and your active units, like strength numbers. And the reason they get to choose which gunner to apply the damage to is because they're on the same level. If player 2 had them lined in a straight line, then they could only do damage to the front gunner.
So at the end of the turn, you can choose to use an event card or not. In this case, this player did not choose to use an event card, and then it passes over to player 2.
And this just kind of shows all of the cards.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to talk for a half a second about like how you made all the cards.
I just used an iPad. I used Procreate. I don't know if anyone's used that, but just found an image, traced it, filled it in, and then on the sides I found little like symbols, I guess. I put them just up in the corners there.
And then I would say we took a blank deck of cards. It's got Amazon, and it's a user interface like designing app called Figma. You can put a bunch of text layers over it and size them the way you want specifically for your cards. Download them as an image, print them, and then just tape them on so you have exact card size piece of paper out there. Anyone have any questions? Yeah.
So going into like the design, so you like drew all of these pictures out?
Yeah, kind of. I like found it and I traced them all out. Kind of took a little bit. It's kind of tedious, but
It looks really nice. You did good.
I say the cards don't do it justice because the first download they kind of were a little blurry. But I ran out of Clarkson printing money, so and I didn't notice until after I printed all of them. But the ones on here are clearer.
Yeah, sometimes what you have is digital files, the resolution is just not high enough to print.
It was my bad.
Yeah, it looks good on a screen.
Well, these ones would print out fine. I downloaded, I don't know why, I downloaded from the app I was using, not clear at all. Must have messed with the resolution. I downloaded these ones as a JPEG, and those were a PNG, so maybe that has something to do with it. That's not my specialty, but
It's a learning experience.
yes, for sure.
Awesome.
Alright, hi everybody, my name is Kaylee Sacco,
I'm Orlando. I'm Nate.
And I'm Tim.
and today we're going to be talking about our Catan-inspired World War I strategy board game called In the Trenches. And we're going to start off, we're going to go through the background of our project, what we were inspired by to create this, the basic game mechanics, and how it differs from Catan, the game overview, who's this targeted to, what the time complexity is, and then finally some improvements if we had more time.
So the background for our game is that where the inspiration came from is that a lot of our group members played an unhealthy amount of Catan in 2024. It's a common knowledge, gameplay, and strategy, so it's pretty easy to learn if you know the realm of Catan. We had a lot of connections to the makerspace, so we utilized that to the full extent. And we wanted to make the creative process more fun than grueling, and then finally we wanted to relate a lot of our World War I history through the images that we saw during the art class. So.
Alright, so for the game mechanics, it's set up similar to Catan, where we randomize the board. So all of these tiles are in like different places every time we play, and so are all the number tiles. And everybody rolls, and you decide who goes first. Everybody places one bunker, which are, you can't really see it, these guys. I probably should have put a picture, but oh well. And then 2 trenches you put down to start, and then you are rotating, rolling, and collecting resources to build trenches, camps, or buy battle cards. And it's a 2v2 game where Catan is 1v1. So you are working with your ally. It's the US and the British versus Austria and the Germans. Yeah, okay, next slide. So this is the board, which is right here, which most of you probably can't see. We made it in the makers. We made the board in the makerspace. We did all like the tiles by like laser cutting in the wood, and then we 3D printed the trenches and the camps and the bunkers. Sorry. Yeah, the next. And then these are all of our resources. So you collect ammunition, food, soldiers, raw materials, and fuel. So to buy things, a trench costs 1 soldier, 1 raw material. A camp costs 1 soldier, 1 ammo, 1 fuel, and 1 food supplies. And a battle card costs 2 ammo, 2 soldiers, and a food supplies. And then the biggest place where this game separates itself from Catan is, and what changes the way you play, is these battle cards. So we've got 5 different battle cards. We have tanks, reinforcements, gas attack, medical supplies, and bombs. So the tank, gas attack, and bomb are all attacks. The reinforcements and medical supplies are defense cards. So if you buy a battle card and you pull a reinforcement card and then somebody plays a tank, you would flip that and it counters it, and both things are deemed they don't do anything. And with these battle cards, the goal is to you build a trench kind of towards the other person, and once you're like this with them, you play your battle card and you take over their trench, and you're like kind of taking over their territory. Is how it works. Next. So some more game mechanics. What kind of separates this from Catan? Because it looks very similar, but it plays very different. It's a 2v2 game, like I mentioned. You either both win or you both lose. You're openly trading the whole time with your ally. The battle cards change the way the game is played. The way that you steal camps adds a new dynamic. You're not really building your area as much. Well, you are, but you're also simultaneously attacking and trying to take what the other team has got. And then when a 7 is rolled, you choose 1 battle card from the other team, and they have to flip it and show you what they've got. And it's basically, we call it the spy. It's looking over them. Yeah.
So, a game overview. The goal audience that we were trying to entice is people who are simply really interested in World War I and really enjoy playing Catan. Because what else would you want? Complexity and time consumption. The complexity of the game is, I'd say, moderate. I mean, if you've played Catan, you understand. But, I mean, it takes a little bit to learn, but it's really very much doable. And a playthrough is it can range depending on how the board is set up, but on the top end, I would say an hour and 10 minutes. But other than that, it's very quick.
And then some of our improvements that we could make to this if we had more time, because the makerspace, they only have the mini laser cutter, so we have like a miniature version of our board. We definitely could have made it a larger size had the large laser printer not been out of service. Similarly, we probably could have changed the material of our battle cards, as they are made of resume paper right now, just so they're not so flimsy. And then our 3D printed pieces of trenches, bunkers, and tents, they are all the same color. So if we had time, we could have recolored them to emphasize the 2v2 nature of the game and the fact that it's USA versus Britain versus Germany and Austria. And then the resource balancing is another thing that we could spend a lot more time on because of the value of food, for example. It's a lot easier to buy things when food is worth more. So, yeah. Thank you.
Questions?
Questions?
What is Catan?
Settlers of Catan's a board game, like a pretty well-known board game. It's a lot of fun. I've played an unhealthy amount. I am people who've played an unhealthy amount of Catan this semester.
So it's just really similar to what you made.
There's differences. It's inspired by Catan, which we weren't afraid to say. It looks similar, but it plays very different because basically the 2v2 aspect makes it different, and the network, basically the way you build, you start with your like base and then you're expanding, whereas in Catan you can start in two different places and it doesn't really matter as much. You're building a network and trying to take over your opponent more in this game. Jacob?
Is that the rule book right there?
Yes, it is a rule book if people are interested in looking at it. We made this picture with generative AI and then did this book, yeah.
So Catan is not unproblematic in certain ways, not least because one of the things that it does is you invade somewhere that is ostensibly empty, but without any discussion of might already be there. And so there's a lot of discussion in the game space about Catan as basically a representation of colonialism without really understanding that's what it's doing. There's this good book called Playing Oppression, that came out recently. It kind of dives into some of this. So yeah, Catan is very famous in, I guess, the Eurogame side of things, and it's a well-designed game. And I think it's sold millions of copies. But, yeah, it's not entirely unproblematic. But I think your game is different enough. I mean, the shape is very similar, but
yeah, we thought about trying to go with a different board shape, and then we didn't. When we did the playthrough, it played very different from Catan, which was good to see.
I mean, hexagons are hexagons, right? So
yeah, only so much.
You really put a trademark on a hexagon.
Okay, all right. Anything else?